Hey everyone, I am back. It's Dr. Hammond here with your mental health moment. I hope that you've had a really amazing week. For those of you who are tuning in for the very first time, welcome. It's Dr. Hammond here with your mental health moment. And for those who tune in every single Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, welcome back. And for those of you who are tuning into the replay on YouTube, Dr. Nikisha Hammond YouTube, welcome. Thanks so much for joining. And if you didn't know, this is the month of May, which is Mental Health Awareness Month, which of course is an awesome month. And thanks to those who are starting to join here. It's Dr. Hammond here with your mental health moment. So it is Mental Health Awareness Month. So this is a super exciting month, of course. And we will be continuing on Mental Health Moment, of course, all things mental health. For those of you who are new, every Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we are right here live talking about ways for you to be the best version of who you are so you can show up for yourself and show up for those around you. And thanks again for those who are starting to join here. Let me know where you're tuning in from today. It's Dr. Hammond here with your mental health moment. I am back in Florida, you all. I feel like I haven't been in Florida on a mental health moment. I don't know. It feels like a while. I've been all over the country doing something or another, usually in cold climates, but I am back in sunny Florida, Tampa Bay area of Florida. And hi, welcome. Thanks so much for joining here. Zephyr Hills is in the house. Irvine, I think it's pronounced. California is here. Let me know where you're tuning in from. But again, it's Dr. Hammond here with your mental health moment. Fort Worth, Texas is in the house. Atlanta, Georgia, Arizona, Columbus, Ohio. Welcome. Winston-Salem, North Carolina's here. Virginia's in the house. Welcome. So just as a reminder, in case you're new, the first Tuesday of every month is specifically devoted to youth mental health, because as you know, there's so much that's been happening with our youth, with our kids, with our teens. So the first Tuesday of every month is absolutely devoted to children, teen mental health awareness. And thanks for those who are still starting to join here. New York's in the house, another Columbus, Ohio in the house. Welcome. Houston, Texas is here. A lot of Texas people in the house today. So welcome. So for those of you who hadn't heard the news, it's very recent news, actually. The U.S. Surgeon General has talked about this issue of loneliness and how it's been impacting our mental health. And in particular, especially with young adults, ages 15 to 24, it's been pretty significant. So I'm going to read the headline for you that I saw on this one side, and I was like, this is insane. So I'm going to bring it to mental health moment tonight. But they say that loneliness poses risks as deadly as smoking. So I'm going to repeat that. Loneliness is posing risks as deadly as smoking. One of the things they said is that loneliness in the US is posing health risks as deadly as smoking a dozen cigarettes a day, which is pretty crazy when you think of it. And what that means, and hi for those who are still starting to join here, is Dr. Hammond here with your mental health moment. And what that means really, of course, when we think of cigarettes, we always think of physical health issues, right? When we think of the things that could go wrong. But this, of course, is an emotional issue and a mental health crisis, really, that's continuing to happen, and especially for our young adults. And good evening from Boston. Welcome. I was just there in Boston last week, I believe. Yes, last week. So welcome. Thanks for joining here. But the issue with the loneliness, what's happened is, especially after COVID, it was already starting to be an issue, but especially after COVID, what has happened, you all, is especially for our teens or for our young adults, what's happened in all of the connections that were lost. So the in-person events and the getting together and all the things that we need, right? We're social beings. That not only slowed down, of course, because of COVID, we were on lockdown and quarantine and all these things, but a lot of these connections haven't necessarily been re-established. So what they've said is, I'm going to find another part of the article to share with you here. So for the young people, especially ages 15 to 24, this age group reported a 70% drop in time spent with friends during the same period of time. 70%. That's very significant, especially when you think of when you were between the ages of 15 to 24. you may have been pretty social, right? In high school and things you were doing post high school and all the social activities that exist. But what's happening right now for our youth, as I mentioned, is there's this chronic issue with loneliness and for adults too, you all. But of course, today's mental health moment is all about the youth. Uh, but what I would say to that, and I know if you've been here before a mental health moment, I've said it before, but I want to reiterate, especially with this news that has come out today, is it's so important, you all, for our kids and for our teens to make sure they're connected to something, to someone. Some of the things these, and hi for those who are still starting to join here, Bermuda's in the house, welcome. Dallas Fort Worth Texas is here, welcome, welcome, thanks so much for joining here, you all today. Riverside California is here, thanks so much for joining. New York's in the house. But one of the things I want to remind you of is how important and powerful connection is, especially for our youth. So especially as they're going through, again, like adults, the chronic loneliness as well, which can lead to depression, which can lead to anxiety. And the reason why they're saying that this loneliness is it could be worse than smoking cigarettes is because we already know what cigarettes do to us, right? We already know, smoking, it can impact your lungs, it can impact your heart, it can cause all these physical health issues, but so can loneliness, right? That isolation, that withdrawal. I mean, especially with teens, especially with our young adults, the thoughts that come about sometimes when you're so isolated and you're in such a dark place, the anxiety that comes about not feeling good about yourself, having negative thoughts, maybe it's thoughts of self-harm. There's all these things that can start to happen which not only affect you mentally but can affect them physically as well. So it's this really difficult situation that a lot of our youth, a lot of our young adults are in right now with this isolation and this loneliness. So again, one of the ways to think about combating this, if you will, is is definitely the connection piece. But again, when I think about, as a psychologist, some of the young adults that I've worked with and some of the teens, it really is a spectrum, if you will, of anxiety, let's say. So for some teens and young adults, they may not want to be going out and socializing and getting together in person and going to forums or group efforts and all those sorts of things. That may be really scary for whatever reason, right? Maybe it's still COVID related. There are still people, this is 2023, but there are still people, understandably, that are still afraid to leave the house due to the COVID-19 virus. Like that still exists. The anxiety didn't magically go away for everyone. There are a lot of people still that are still very anxious about germs. There's people that are anxious about dangers. Unfortunately, tragically, we continue to hear about these school shootings. We continue to hear about mass shootings. Like these are very anxiety provoking things. I've met even adults too who are really struggling with sadness, with loneliness, with anxiety because of all the current events that are happening right now, right? So it was COVID-19 kind of worsened this issue with the loneliness, and we're still having a lot of things happening that are affecting our youth, right? So number one definitely is a connection piece. The other piece to think about is if you have a young adult or a teen or young adult in your life, whether you're their parent, their grandparent, their friend of a family, if you work with teens or whatever capacity that you interact with them, the smallest things you do, sometimes it really goes a long way because we don't always know the loneliness that sometimes these teens and these young adults are experiencing. Just because, do not forget this, you all, for mental health moment. Just because a teen or young adult is smiling does not mean they're happy. There's people that fake smiles all the time. It doesn't mean their life is happy. It doesn't mean because you see on social media 3 pictures in a week where they're smiling that they're happy. Because again, this is the U.S. Surgeon General. This is a huge announcement that was made today about how the chronic loneliness is affecting so many people in physical and emotional health ways. So again, understanding that and knowing though that the little things you can do, whether it's a compliment, whether it's kind words, whether it's treating people with compassion. I know that it seems so simple, you all, but that is a part of the solution. It's not the only thing. No, but it's a part of the solution. And there's so many kids, so many teens, so many young adults that need this type of positive treatment in their lives. So many, so as many of you know, actually, I was just telling you all, some of you are tuning in from Boston today, that, and people are getting sick, unfortunately. Yes, absolutely. Someone said, wow, that's significant. Loneliness for our young people is so hard, especially since they're not getting back to having the relationships they had before the pandemic. I see it far too much. Yes, absolutely. This, what's so fascinating with with COVID-19, you all, and we knew this as as psychologists, we knew this in the mental health field, and we knew this already. But back in 2020 and back in 2021, again, when there was so much on the news about the virus and about the vaccines and about the shutdowns and the lockdowns and globally how it impacted everyone, we already knew in the mental health field that it was going to continue to be a crisis. Why? Because think about anything that's happened in your own life. There's certain things that happen, it takes years to recover from that, right? Depending on how big the stress was in your life, there's some things that, yes, it takes a day to get over. There's some things that takes a week. There's some things that takes a month, and there's some things that take years to deal with. And this is one of those things, the loneliness, not getting back to just springing back into your old friendships, not springing back to wanting to be in a relationship or whatever it is that can connect you, right? But I encourage you today, again, for those teens and for those young adults that you have and that you know of in your life, because especially, again, that 15 to 24 age group is who's really being affected right now. I encourage you, though, to have them seek some type of connection to something. So think about, what are they good at, what are they passionate about. So for some teens, let's say, they might be passionate about something that thankfully does have them around other people and have them connecting, like sports or the arts or some other hobby where they're connected around other people. But for some teens, they really are great, passionate about things that involve just themselves, right? It might be painting, it might be puzzles or arts and crafts or something where they're in a lot of solo time activities, but encouraging them to their comfort level. If they can handle being with friends, being with family members, being with a combination, being with one person, being with a group, where are they at with that? Just to make sure you complement that effort, right? And continue to explore more ways for them to stay connected to something, some activities, something they're good at, and preferably someone like a friend, like a supportive adult, like a mentor, like a person at a place of worship, or whomever it could be, positive person that it can be for them. Right. And the other thing I do want to remind you all, I always remind you on mental health moment, is to definitely make sure that if that particular person in your life has chronic loneliness where they're withdrawing so much you're afraid of some significant depression or anxiety or fearful of them really going downhill, spiraling downhill, there's always mental health professionals that can be beneficial as well. That's always an option, right? And Let's read some of your comments here. um oh wow, you're absolutely welcome. Someone said, my grandson is 15 and you've inspired me to stay connected with him. Absolutely. I love to hear that. He's still grieving the loss of his other grandmother. Thank you for sharing that. And I'm sorry for his loss and your loss as a family, but absolutely, yes, stay connected to him because man, it's so hard. It's so hard sometimes, you all, to share decades worth of what I've seen and all the stories I've heard from people, and in good ways, like the resilience, but also the trauma and also the pain and also the difficulties with grief and all these sorts of things that I've witnessed and heard so many stories. But on a positive note, what I see time after time after time is what helps people tremendously is that connection, especially with our youth. The connection is huge. And especially, I don't know when the grieving happened for the person that mentioned that in the comments, but the loss happened, but the grief is very real, right? For many of us, we know grief is very real. Sometimes it takes years and years to get through. right? So if you, and I say you for everyone here, if you are the light in someone's life, and you are the person that's kind, and you are the person that's compassionate, and that's what they have to cling to in their darkest time, that can be really life-saving, frankly, for someone. And again, when we're talking about this issue, it even said, one of the other things the article said, loneliness increases the risk of premature death by nearly 30%. You all, that's, these have very, we take for granted how powerful connection is, but the loneliness, again, this chronic loneliness that they're talking about, I mean, premature death, increasing premature death by 30%, increasing your risk of all sorts of physical health activities, increasing your risk of depression, anxiety, and all sorts of mental health issues. Like, this is a real issue. And the US Surgeon General coming out with this information to be like, hey, this is a crisis here, right? And but here's what we can do about it. So thank you for sharing that in the comments here. Uh, yeah, yeah, and yes, I see some of the spam here. You all just, of course, absolutely, absolutely ignore that. With some of the spam here, it happens. Yeah, yes, I see your comments. Someone said my young adult daughter picked back up on her crocheting habit during the pandemic and started making quilts for family members. It was a lifesaver for her, helped her mentally tremendously. I love to hear that. That's so beautiful. That's such a beautiful thing. And again, so if there's, of course, there's good parts of solo activities too, right? That's of course a great thing too, with self-care and that sort of thing. However, in addition to that, in addition to the solo things, we want to make sure that we're doing our best to encourage our teens and encourage our young adults to stay connected. Even if it's, again, it really depends on where they're at, even if it's by text, if it's by email, if it's by social media. A lot of people communicate, I know I do as well, like through social media, messages, or however it is that they communicate, ideally in person. But again, there's other methods, obviously, of communication, but making sure that they stay connected, to really help them when it comes to social support, to help them feel understood, to work on their own healing journey, whatever that may look like. It's easier to work on your healing journey when you feel connected to someone or something. Yeah, absolutely. So someone was asking about connecting. Um, DrNikishaHammond.com. It absolutely has all my social media contacts. You can always send me a message on there as well if you need a resource in your area related to mental health. I'm more than happy to do my best to connect you to a resource in your area, or connect with me on social media as well, because I'm trying my best on a daily basis, usually, to send out pretty reputable mental health resources, ways to help you, ways for you to become, right, the best version of who you are, to show up for yourself and show up for those around you and show up for those youth in our lives, right? Um, yep. Someone said experiencing a loss, and experiencing an anniversary of a loss. So I'm kind of down in the dumps and I stay emotional a lot. Condolences for sure for your loss. As I mentioned before, you all, grief is, we did a whole mental health moment about it, but grief is real. It's very difficult sometimes. And though you have to do what you need for you, right, to best heal during that journey. Uh, People experience grief in a lot of different ways. And so do our teens, and so do our young adults, really experiencing grief in a lot of different ways. COVID-19 pandemic was difficult. There was a lot of grief, a lot of loss experienced in a lot of different ways, on top of the whole entire world, right? Having this global impact and disruption in the entire world. And we're all like watching this on social media or on traditional media or wherever you were getting your information. We're all witnesses to what is happening. And it affects us in a lot of different ways. Um, Good evening to you as well. Thanks so much for joining here. So I will say, for sure, as I wrap up here, to think about our youth, think about our young adults, especially, like I said, with the U.S. Surgeon General talking specifically with the 15 to 24-year-old crowd, is just the chronic loneliness has really, really had an impact. So please do what you can to encourage the connections, to encourage it through groups, through encourage it through in person, encourage it through virtual means, or however it is. We're at this point, really, I think, in the mental health field, we're trying to work on encouraging reconnection, right? To re-strengthen the friendships, relationships that we had prior to COVID-19, but also there's been a lot of changes, of course. So to continue to build more friendships, to encourage teens, to encourage our kids as well, to think about how to positively, uh, well, positively and interact with one another. There's been a lot of time lost, unfortunately, for especially for our little ones, with the social skills piece. Frankly, our little ones, the preschoolers and the elementary schoolers, they really lost some time with socialization, and for some kids that were in school and that sort of thing. But now we're at a time, right, that we're working on the reconnection, we're working on relearning, we're working on encouraging, to really stay connected. So, um, it absolutely is. I saw your comment here. Grief is definitely an issue for sure. So if you all need me at any time, you all know to reach me, drnikishahammond.com. You can also connect with me on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter. Just look for Dr. Nikisha Hammond. If you are watching the replay right now on YouTube, be sure to subscribe, Dr. Nikisha Hammond. And that way you'll know when all the mental health moments are on the replay in case you all miss it live. But thank you all. Yep. Someone said reconnecting, communication, and listening. Absolutely. Someone said the words to lean on me ring true. Let's share them. Yes, for sure. For sure. Thank you all for joining today. I will be back next Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Please take care of yourself. Please, again, encourage one another. This is for adults too, but of course, today, the first Tuesday of the month, is specifically dedicated to our youth mental health. But we really, all of us really have some healing to do from the last couple of years, especially. So working on the reconnections, working on connecting with each other, working on the kindness, working on the compassion, and also teaching these things to our youth and our young adults as well. So remember to do that. Have an amazing week, and I'll see you all next Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here live on Black Women Empowered Incorporated Facebook page, YouTube, and LinkedIn Live. Have a great week. I'll see you soon. Bye, y'all.